I'm Whitney.
I'm Mindy.
And I'm Deb.
We're three best friends who love nerdy things.
Well, some people think we're nerdy, but we think we're pretty awesome.
This is Our Nerdiest Thing.
Hello, fellow nerds, and welcome to Our Nerdiest Thing. Today, we're going to be talking about the 1987 classic comedy horror, The Lost Boys.
Yes.
That is how it's described, too, a comedy horror.
I mean, I can see that.
Which I got after watching it.
I would call it campy.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Before we get into any of that, Deb, will you please share about our nerdiest cocktail?
Of course. This week's cocktail is named Bloody Sweet.
Ooh.
And it's a amaretto / vodka concoction. And you know how this goes, you guys. If you're not listening on Thursday, you need to go to the website, ournerdiestthing.com, or you need to go on our Instagram at ournerdiestthing to get the cocktail. But it's really good. If it's
so good.
If it hits a little too strong for you, cut it with a little bit of lime juice. That's what we do for Whitney, our resident one
Lightweight.
drink drunk. And then Mindy and I brought the pitcher in here and we'll just finish it off.
I refilled mine before we even came in to start recording.
We're all exhausted but happy to be together.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, let's get into nerdy news. And Deb, it's all you because Mindy and I ain't got none.
That's all right. I have a lot. Okay, so I've got I've got like 5. Okay, so the first one I want to speak about is a book called I'll Be Waiting. It's by Liv Zander. It comes out on October 1st. And this is a ghost story about a woman who loses her husband very tragically. But in his final moments, he tells her that he will be waiting for her.
Oh.
Ooh.
Her family decides to bring in a parapsychologist for a seance, only for weird shit to start happening and for dead bodies to begin to pile up.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yikes.
I've got it on Libro FM right now, so I'm going to listen to it hopefully this week. The next book that is coming out on October 8th is Monarch by Sophie Lark. In this book, a woman decides to become a mail-order bride to get herself out of her small hometown and is thrilled to have hit the jackpot with the renowned author husband who begins to build her own fairy tale castle, which sounds really cool, except for
Feel
the
like it's
castle.
gonna take a turn.
Yeah. The castle begins to seem more like a prison than the life she had planned for herself. And I love Sophie Lark. If you like dark romance, she doesn't go too dark,
Yeah.
but she writes mafia romance and stuff.
She's going to be at Wild and Windy Chicago.
She's so nice.
I'm so excited to meet her.
Yeah. Kate Gately, friend of the podcast, one of her favorite books is Minx by Sophie Lark.
Oh.
Yeah. So I really, really like her. She's a great person too. Next, we've got Bloodguard by Cecy Robson. This comes out on October 8th. It's highly anticipated. It's been pushed back a couple of times, so I'm glad to see that we will have it shortly. It is about Leith, the character Leith, who thought coming to a new land and volunteering to fight in the gladiator arena would earn him enough gold to save his dying sister. He thought that there was nothing left to lose, but of course he was wrong.
Yeah.
He loses everything, his house, his home, his freedom, his hope, humanity, all that good stuff that you normally keep. So that comes out on October 8th. This is my probably one of my most anticipated reads of the year. The Twisted Throne by Danielle Jensen comes out on October 10th. This is the 5th book in the Bridge Kingdom series, and it follows Anya, who has been promised to another king, where she has to decide if she's going to try to save her own lands by marriage or by bloodshed. And all the women in these books are kick-ass, way more than the guys are. One note about this book is that on October 10th, it's only being released in audio. The series has actually been picked up by Del Rey and is being completely re-released, so you won't be able to get the physical or ebook copy of this book until April 8th of 2025. So if you want to get it right away, like I do, you need to listen to it through April.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then finally, this is a book I read quite some time ago and talked on the podcast about, but it's called Bull Moon Rising by Ruby Dixon. It comes out on October 15th. And if you're not familiar with Ruby Dixon, they are the one that wrote Ice Planet Barbarians. In this book, in order to save her family's home and obtain her dream job, Aspith goes on an epic adventure to join the Royal Artifactual Guild. The only problem is that they typically don't accept women, especially without a mentor or chaperone. So when Aspith sees an opportunity to marry to solve both problems, she makes a deal with a Minotaur. And he teaches and chaperones her. And she has to take care of his needs during the conquest moon, which happens to be his mating ritual.
His bull moon
is rising.
Yeah, it is. It's rising and full of cum. So it is a monster romance, but it's really good because she is like kind of the wife, or sorry, not the wife, the daughter of a lord, and people think she's been sheltered her whole life. They don't really take her very seriously, and she ends up being quite the badass. So I would highly recommend that book, as long as you don't mind a little monster smut.
Well,
yeah,
there you go.
Go for it. Good job, Ruby Dixon. So yeah, that's everything coming out in the next couple weeks. The reason I went a little bit ahead, just so our listeners remember, is we will have a week off after this episode before we finish up Butcher and Blackbird. So that's what's coming up.
All right. Well, let's get into the nerdy and dirty with what we're reading. I can start us off. I've had some not great ARC experiences.
I don't ever want to tease authors, but I think without saying the author's name, we need to start putting some of these sentences you send us via text in our Instagram channel.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk more about that specifically in the What I'm Loving section of our episode tonight. But a couple of arcs that were just like... not what I wanted them to be. And so I wanted to read something that I was going to enjoy. So I went back to a book I've read before and read Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This is dark.
Well, that is not a light read.
Yeah, no, but it is a good read. So this is a dark romance where the female main character and her sister's fiance get abducted by a serial killer, and they have to rely on each other to survive. So obviously there are some trigger warnings there with that very brief synopsis. We've got abduction, confinement, sexual assault, rape, stuff that goes along with all of those things. But believe it or not, it's a really beautiful love story, and it's got really good spice, but also dark. So
I bought a copy from her last time I saw her, but I'm like scared to read it.
I know I have, because I've got to be in the right
copy too. I got to be in the right mindset for it.
It's on Kindle Unlimited, which is how I read it, and then I went to find my physical copy, and I cannot find it anywhere.
What?
No. I have no idea where it is.
Okay.
I don't know if I let somebody borrow it, but my sister said she doesn't have it.
Let me look through, because I mean, it could possibly just be in a pile of my books from us traveling together.
Because if I didn't lend it to somebody, I think it got taken to half price books.
No. And then someone online's like, look at this signed copy I found.
Yeah.
You take books to half price?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My sister gives me books I'm never going to read.
Shout out to Catherine.
Shout out to Catherine. Sometimes I take them to half price books. She'll say, I don't want that back, and I'll be like,
okay, me either.
Yay, I got $1.50 for it.
Yeah, like historical romance. Thank you. Thank you for all the book recommendations, Catherine.
Full Moon Rising is, I guess you would call it gaslight fantasy, historical romance, but you know,
that era.
Yeah, but it's still got a minotaur in it, so it makes it a little easier to read.
Exactly.
I can't believe it. It makes it easier to read because there's a monster.
Minotaur.
There was an article it was like Cosmo or something this week that I saw online that was like, what's with the obsession with monster porn?
Clearly, she's not read it.
It helps us escape reality.
It does.
Yeah. So much.
Shit is hard sometimes, and we just want to fully escape. It doesn't mean that we want to fuck a minotaur, actually.
Yeah.
No bestiality going on here, guys.
Mm-mm. So anyway, read Still Beating. It's really good. I also read, I'm not going to talk much about this because I know Mindy's going to tell us more about it in just a second, but I read If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia, which Mindy has talked about before, doing an ARC reading for that. I loved it. I read it in less than 24 hours. It was not a dark romance.
No.
It's a nice little, like, uplifting.
She's really sweet, isn't she? Her books.
Yeah.
She's
definitely got, like, a sweet small town.
It's
a small town romance.
Yeah.
Since I've already convinced Whitney to read it, and she loved it. So this was my convince me to read this book this week.
Cool.
So, first of all, I know I've been talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and I'm so glad I got an ARC. Thank you so much, Julie Olivia, and Pen Pal PR for giving me this e-ARC. I've really been anticipating this book for a while, and it did not disappoint. If you want a great rom-com that will be a quick, cozy autumn read, this one's it. It's set in the late 90s, so there are so many great references to music and the culture of the time. Mm-hmm. It is a single dad, small town romance. The female main character is a recent divorcee who also just lost her mother. So there are some trigger warnings like parental death and stuff like that. But he is the sunshine to her grumpy, which I always love that twist. There's no shortage of witty banter because not only do these two keep each other on their toes, the main male character character has great banter with his teenage daughter.
Yes.
She's like 16, and it's just hilarious. It's totally different than the banter with the female main character, so you get lots of banter, but it doesn't feel samey same.
Yeah.
I also read this in under 24 hours, and it did make me happy. So it pulled me out
Good
of a
job, Sheryl Crow.
it pulled me out of a romance book slump, and I just love Julia Olivia. And it was so funny because when I sent Deb, because I've been sending her lots lately because I've been reading a lot, and 2 of them at least had like song titles as the beginning.
And I was like, are you just reading books from 90s song titles? Is that how you're picking your books right now?
Maybe.
Not on purpose, but it worked.
Yeah. And you read a book last year based off Hey There, Delilah, didn't you?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So, well, and you do love music like my sexual butler does.
This is not a Why Choose podcast.
Hashtag not my butler.
He's just your normal butler.
He's my regular butler.
You're right. Yeah. Minus the butt.
Hashtag not my butler. Not my sexual butler.
What's funny is listeners have started calling him that too when they like message me.
Love it.
Oh, man. Mindy, are you reading anything else?
I just finished Pucking Sweet by Emily Rath. It's
Ooh.
Poppy, Novi, and Maro's story, which you get like teased in the first 2 books. I really, really loved it. It wasn't my favorite of the 3, but I still really enjoy her writing. She's got so much great. It's a 5 chili spice for sure. There's all kinds of spice going on in this book.
It's a 5-alarm fire.
There's up against an ice machine. There's elevator sex. It's all good. It's all good.
Are they living it up while they're going down?
They are. Actually, it's stuck. It's a stuck elevator. So they have to hurry.
Stuck.
Forced proximity.
Yep. So
moist.
Now I will say,
I thought you said moist. Oh my God,
That
Whitney.
too. There was an excessive moisture level, I bet.
I will say
It's just running down
that there is a
thighs.
surprise pregnancy in this one. So I know you all hate that, but it's not something that wasn't teased in the other books.
I was going to say, if you read Pucking Wild,
You know that-
you already
yeah,
know that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't mind a pregnancy if it is not what makes them have a happily ever after.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't believe
And it's not.
that is what makes all women live happily.
It's very realistic. I really love the way she handled the surprise pregnancy. One of them is like all full family and one of them's not. And so there's some questioning, and it's just a really great story.
Like you do with Rachel's story. Do you find out who the actual dad is?
Yes.
Okay, fun. Can't wait. I know. And I was like, I told you
Nice.
I wasn't going to be able to discern whether I wanted to read that or Goldfinch first, but Goldfinch is going to be here first. So I think
Oh, man.
that
Yeah.
might win.
That
No,
makes-
actually, that's awesome.
Makes your decision.
I need to read that too.
Yeah.
That might be my vacation read.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's good.
And you'll be alone with your husband, which is nice
And moist.
and moist.
Shout out to Darren.
I always have to ask Mindy where I should sit in her camper first.
Not there. Not there.
Not
there.
against that wall.
Well, Deb, what are you reading?
So I just started a book called I Think They Love You by Julian Winters. It comes out at the end of January and it's really cute.
Oh, yeah.
It's fake dating between 2 ex-boyfriends so that one of them can prove to his father that he's stable enough to take over as the CEO of the family business.
Yeah.
So because they're like, whatever, you're young and you just like date all the time.
Yeah.
And he's like, I got a boyfriend, and just so happens to run into his ex. So their relationship, because it has dual timelines. So it goes back and talks more about their relationship, and they're like really, really sweet.
Aw,
and I'm
I love
enjoying
that.
it so much.
What's it called again?
I Think They Love You.
I Think
because
They
he's
Love
talking about his super rich family when he brings the boyfriend to meet him
Okay.
for the first time in the past. Yeah, it's really, really sweet. Highly recommend so far.
Nice. Well, let's move into what we're watching.
Technically, we all watched Lost Boys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that-
technically, I almost put that down.
I
was like,
did too, actually. Yeah. Well, I also watched a Netflix documentary about boy bands. It's called Dirty Pop.
Which boy bands?
Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and O-Town and lots of other ones.
Are they dirty?
Well, no, they're not. But it was about Lou Pearlman,
Yeah,
who was
he
like
is
the
super dirty.
creator manager of them. Which I didn't I knew that he was a Backstreet Boy NSYNC founder guy, but I didn't realize all the other he tried to recreate that success like over and over and over.
You might
again.
need to go on the Sexual Butlers podcast, Rock and Roll Bedtime Stories, because I know Brian has wanted to talk about that guy for a long time.
Oh,
Yeah, that might be a good crossover. And then we can get more hate mail like we did last time.
yeah.
Where some guy said those those gals.
Yeah, I don't want to listen to nobody with a vagina.
I don't want to. He's like, and then they started talking about twats. It was disgusting. We got our hate mail and we were like, we've made it.
Yeah. Oh, they hate us because they ain't us. So
Anus or
ain't.
They're also an anus.
We're done with the anal this week, Deborah.
I'm still stuck in last week.
Yeah, I am. No, but it's a 3-part documentary about, I almost said documentary about Lou Pearlman. So it talks about him and how he created basically the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and how that all went and that success. But also he was like basically stealing money from them.
Oh, yeah.
And also running
He's a huge douche.
Yeah, he was running a Ponzi scheme, like Bernie Madoff style Ponzi scheme. And it was just really crazy. I knew part of that story, but I didn't know the whole thing. And it was so just interesting and weird to watch all of these clips because I was like hardcore NSYNC. Like I was into it.
That was your
back
era.
in the day. That was totally my era. And all these like music video clips and talking about different specific album releases and clips from like MTV and TRL and all this stuff. And I was just like, it was like watching a piece of my childhood. And then they're like, and in the background, all this horrible stuff was happening. And it was like, oh,
That's how I felt about the Nickelodeon documentary.
oh my gosh.
I was
Yes,
like,
that
I refuse
too.
to watch that because
Yeah.
I think it's going to ruin my childhood.
It does a little bit.
It does kind of, yeah. So, but it was really interesting.
Yeah.
It's right up that true crime, spooky season true crime alley, but without, well,
The murder?
well,
Oh,
there's,
maybe not.
There's a little bit of death, not murder, but I was just about to say without all the dying, but I can't. So.
Whitney refuses to watch anything where someone doesn't get slaughtered. She might be sweet, but is she?
Yeah, I'm just really into true crime. So that's what I watched, plus The Lost Boys, which I am excited to talk about with you guys in a few minutes. What were you guys
I watched
watching?
something completely different.
Something uplifting?
I mean, well, no, because they lost, but preseason hockey's on. And so preseason's very different because it's basically part of training camp where they're like looking at everybody to see how they're going to gel with different lines and how they're going to play. Are they going to rise to the occasion? Some of the younger guys. So it's never like a full roster of like veteran guys, but it's nice to see like some of the up and coming guys. But yeah, we totally tanked both times. I'm like,
who's we?
The St. Louis Blues. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Yes. If you don't know yet, I am a St. Louis Blues fan. I know it's weird. I live in Louisville, but we don't have a hockey team. So
I was going to say, that's not weird because there's not a Louisville team.
well, most people in Louisville root for the Nashville Predators, but I hate the Nashville Predators because
just because they're the closest?
yeah, pretty much. But they're not very nice to me. So I'm sorry if you're a Predators fan and you
To
are
you,
nice.
like, specifically?
Like to other fans. Like
Oh.
it's really like uncomfortable to go to a game there. So yeah.
Well, that's a bummer. It's not fun when it's a not fun rivalry.
Right.
Yeah.
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 Like if you're going to get cussed out and potentially assaulted at a game, it's like,
No, thank
not
you.
Leave that on the ice, people.
They
Yeah.
don't assault, but they like verbally assault. I will tell you
Yeah.
that. It's pretty bad.
Well, if it makes you feel like uncomfortable or unsafe,
yeah, we won't
that's
go to
not
one
fun.
again.
Boo.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Not in Nashville. We'll go to other ones.
Deb, what hockey games are you watching?
What's hockey? Is that an art supply? No. So do you remember last week I had watched a shit ton of TV and literally have not turned on a screen since then? But I am listening to the dramatized From Blood and Ash, which
Oh, yeah.
feels like a movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'm not sure what I think of it without Stina Nielsen. I
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really like her, and I love her cast voice.
You were worried about that.
Yeah, and I find the background music to really kind of bring me out of the story sometimes because I'm like, that's weird music to put right there. I think it's just because I'm so invested into that series, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to keep going because it's a really nice comfort read to have on in the
I think it
background.
would be hard for me to get into something like that after I've already read the book and like created my own
and
sort
listen
of
to another narrator.
yeah, like
Yeah.
created my own sort of world around it, and then to hear that it might be jarring for me too. It's the
Yeah.
way that I'll read a book and then I'll go read like the graphic novel of it, and I don't enjoy the graphic novel because I already had my visions of what it looked like, and then I see it, I'm like, that's not what he looked like.
I'm like that too.
The narrator, the cast is actually pretty good, but I'm having a little bit of trouble with the Poppy. I think they're trying to make her sound more innocent than she is, which I don't love.
No, I don't love that either.
Yeah.
Mindy,
So-
are you listening to anything fun?
I am actually got FOMO when Deb was talking about listening to Pucking Ever After Volume 2.
Oh, yeah, I did listen to that.
So
5 stars.
Yes, so I started listening to that again.
It is. I was like, and I didn't realize it was like little short stories, right? And I'm like crying during one, and then turned on 5 minutes later,
and then laughing.
Yeah. It was really, really good.
It's an emotional roller coaster.
It is
for sure,
and it's quintessential Emily Rath.
Yeah, it's good. Well, I've just been listening to the Twilight soundtracks because it's fall.
Because it's
and that's what I do.
Season.
I wrote in my notes, I love it. What can I say? So that's it.
I know I'm waiting for my daughter to ask when we're watching Twilight. I'll be like,
I know.
right now.
I know. I need to
Let's
do
go
that
do
too.
that.
But no one in my house will watch it with me, which is part of the problem.
Well,
So,
you can just
we'll just
text
all have to
me.
come over to Deb's.
yeah,
We can watch it out on the sun porch when it gets dark out.
that's true.
That'd be fun.
That's a good idea. Well, that brings us to what we're loving, and I'm going to tell you.
Oh, hold on. You know what? I didn't
oh.
actually say what I'm actually listening to
Oh,
because
I thought
did.
it was the graphic novel.
No, I mean, I was saying like that's kind of like what I'm watching.
Oh.
So I'm listening to Phantasma right now,
Right.
which
Oh,
is our
gotcha.
book club pick this month. And it reminds me of an adult version of Caraval. So if you liked that book, but you thought it needed some spice and a little bit more adult content, then this book is definitely for you. It's about a woman who has to win 9 trials in the Phantasma game in order to win one wish, which happens to be able to like find her sister who's gone missing. And there's a delicious phantom that seems to want to help her, but definitely has his own agenda. And I think it's going to include his dick, which
I
I'm
was gonna
excited about.
Does that
Yeah.
agenda have
I
Dick
have-
on Wednesday?
I have a theory about the book. And stop it.
Take on Wednesday.
Any day that ends with Y, Mindy. But I have a theory about it, and I hope that I haven't already figured it out.
Oh, yeah.
But
I hate when I do
it gets really good reviews. But sometimes you don't know if the reviews are coming from mainstream readers that don't read paranormal romance all the time,
Right.
Yeah.
So, but it has been very, very enjoyable. And if you are an audiobook person, I love the way they're narrating it. It's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah.
I have it on Kindle Unlimited, but I'm kind
Me
of
too.
waiting to get the
Physical.
physical copy from Book of the Month because I just am really missing that physical copy of a
I
book.
will
feel.
say the only bad thing about the audio is it's Audible exclusive, so you can't get it at the library.
Yeah.
But I
yeah.
had like 12 credits.
I know I have
I-
a couple extras too.
I do too. I think I have like 9.
I even paused it my thing, and I'm like, why do I
I
still
did
have
too.
2 credits?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did I tell you guys I didn't know I was buying credits?
Yes,
I
you
thought they
did
were going
tell us.
under my husband's account. They weren't. I just had my own.
Yeah.
So I had to pause it. Yeah.
Surprise,
That's
Christmas.
Yeah, that's a fun surprise. Well, now that brings us to sorry I skipped
Sorry
over you,
about
Deb.
that.
I didn't mean to. What we're loving. So I mentioned earlier I've had some disappointing ARC readings, which I don't love that I was disappointed. However, I have been loving just getting a kick out of some of the less than stellar, for me, in my opinion, the less than stellar terminology in some of the sex scenes that I have been reading recently. And I've really been having a great time texting them to you guys and to my
We've enjoyed getting those.
yeah,
Yes.
and to my sister as well. I'm obviously not going to, say what book or author or anything like that, but there were some scenes that I think what the issue is that it's too much telling exactly what's happening instead of like show don't tell.
I don't know.
You know
Some
what
of
I
those
mean?
words aren't
Well,
telling either.
Well,
Some of those words were like, I need a thesaurus to figure something else out here.
yeah. So some
And
of,
just use cock, pussy.
some of
you know,
my
just do it.
favorites some that made me stop reading and say, what now? There were some phrases like nether lips and excessive moisture level. There was also you poured a drink.
You said excessive moisture. I was like,
It sounded like one of us was like, and I'm going to pee now.
that was me pouring more of our nerdiest
that's
cocktail.
That wasn't me
hilarious.
this time. That did not make me
I'm
wet.
very sorry, but that was really funny.
But yeah, that was fun. I had a good time like laughing about it because sometimes it's frustrating to be like disappointed or underwhelmed by a book that you were
It is.
excited about. But I've been trying to have a good time with it. But sometimes maybe closed door scenes are okay.
Where Mindy then had to pour some cocktail.
What are you
That was
guys
hilarious.
loving this week besides
So,
this cocktail?
you all already know this, but I just want to let the listeners know about it. I saw a post online this week where someone had named their book club Edgar Allan Hose. So I immediately changed our book club group chat to the same name and added a little hot dog icon. So now every time, and this group, we text all
the
day, every
time.
day. So every time it pops up, I just bust up laughing. Text
Yeah.
from Edgar Allan
I
Hose.
changed mine as well.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was cute.
It is cute.
Yeah.
I love that.
So
I'm loving that too, Deb.
Me too.
I'm glad you are.
But I'm also loving making new cross stitch patterns. I haven't done this in a while. I made a couple for Emily Rath and gave them to her. And so since I'm reading Pucking Sweet,
Yeah.
I pulled out my old Stitch Fiddle cross stitch software, which you can get online. It's all web based. So that's linked in the show notes if you are into figuring out how to do your own cross stitches. But I also am thinking now I'm going to do some of Julie Olivia's too.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think would be
really
fun because I
sweet.
am also meeting her next year and I'm really excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You could do a cross stitch of Rocket.
I know.
Oh. Rocket and his girl.
Rocket's the dog, and
I'm
if it
sorry,
makes
when you
happy.
said that, I automatically went to Tracy, what's his face off SNL, and he's like, Rocket, I'm going on a rocket. I'm riding in my spaceship.
Well, I had to
Tracy Morgan.
clarify it was a dog because I think my brain would have automatically gone to like his
penis.
dick. Like, is that what they call it?
Her vibrator.
Yeah, they call it
They
the
call it the
rocket.
rocket.
Oh man. Well, that brings us to our nerdiest topic, which is the movie The Lost Boys.
So excited.
Classic 80s vampire comedy, horror, campy film. All the superlatives. So we're going to talk about what we think, what we thought. You guys have both watched this movie before and are watching it again for the however many
The
time.
18,000th.
I have never watched this movie before. This is the first time that I've ever watched it.
I think
So-
we're all in different stages of it too, because I actually saw it in the theater in 1987, and I was not old enough to go see a rated R movie, so I'm sure I snuck in there.
Oh, babe, that was before you didn't have to be with a parent.
Probably,
Well,
yeah.
because I put that too. Like, I watched it in the 80s because we were just allowed to do whatever the fuck we wanted. Yeah.
It came
Pretty
out
much.
the year I was born.
I mean, I was in like 7th or 8th grade.
I was 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you went to the theater and saw it?
I don't think I went to the
Oh, okay.
theater and saw it, but I saw it as soon as it came out on tape.
VHS.
On
Yeah.
VHS.
Yeah, but
Be kind,
it's
rewind.
a cult classic,
It
and
really
I watched
is.
it a lot growing up. It was one of the first vampire films I ever watched, and
Me
between
too.
that and Anne Rice, it kind of turned me into a vampire lover for life.
It holds
because
major nostalgia for me.
yeah, even though it's really campy and funny, it's also still kind of scary
Yeah.
and like gives you the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would totally agree with that.
Like, I feel like, and we'll get into this more, but I feel like I was surprised going back that it was as well done as it was for the time period, right?
I agree with that.
But I also forgot about all the people in this movie.
Right.
So,
Everybody
like,
that was in it.
the-
yeah.
The
guy-
grandpa from Gilmore Girls?
Yes,
Yes,
Edward
that was
Herman.
yes, he was the love interest.
Yeah.
Who turns out to not be great.
Well, and like Diane
Weist.
Weist
From
yeah,
Parenthood and
Who-
from other 80s movies.
was also Robbie walked in while I was watching it and he was like, hey, that's the lady from Life in Pieces. She's like the matriarch of the Life in Pieces
Oh,
family, which
okay.
I know I've mentioned on this podcast before. It's not on anymore, but it was fantastic.
Well,
She's
and you
married to James Brolin.
Also have Alex Winter, who is Bill from Bill and Ted's Excellent
Oh,
Adventure.
yeah.
You might not have noticed him for his disgusting long vampire mullet, which is one of the things I did not like about this.
I did
So
notice
it's funny.
that.
I put one of the things I did not like was that the guy from Bill and Ted only had one line.
I know. Yeah, and he got killed first.
It was like
Yeah.
a weird background actor, but like not a background actor.
Right.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
an actor who should be in background.
So,
actor,
as someone who did not watch it in the 80s and watched it in 2024,
Yeah.
what did you think of it?
I really had a good time watching it. I really liked it a lot. There were some things that were very like, oh my gosh, this is so 1987.
Absolutely.
That made me laugh out loud that I'll talk about in a second because some of those are my like favorite parts of it. But overall, I thought that it really like held up well. I thought they did a good job with the technology and like special effects that they had. You know,
For the time.
it's almost 40 years old.
I
you know?
like really hope they don't ever do a remake of it.
No, yeah, I
because
thought
it's
it was
kind
really
of perfect
good.
how it is.
No, it is perfect.
Yeah,
how it is.
I thought it was great.
One thing I noticed, and so you'll know this from watching Buffy, like the first season of Buffy, the vampire makeup's not super great, but like that's 10 years after this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like this makeup was as good or maybe even a little better
I think it was
than
better.
Buffy's.
I
felt
agree.
like sometimes on Buffy you could see the seam where the prosthetic was
and
on.
I get
Yeah.
they had more money to do
Sure.
it, but I mean
Yeah.
we're talking. I mean I want to say it's more than 10 years. I don't remember when Buffy came out, but it was late
99,
90s.
I think.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it like more
97,
than
maybe.
Yeah, it was
about 10 or so
it was
years
at least
later.
10 years.
So for what they had at the time, I was actually pretty impressed with the effects.
Can you
Yeah, me
imagine
too.
trying to do Buffy on a UPN budget?
I mean,
They're
Yeah.
lucky they got what they got.
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah, no, I thought, because one of our questions in our notes was, does it hold up in 2024? And I really feel like it does. Like, it is campy. I feel like it wants to be campy. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's the kind of movie that knows exactly what it is and is just really leaning into it,
Yeah.
as opposed to trying to make some really serious artsy film that's like, oh no, this
that
didn't
didn't work. Yeah.
yeah, I've really enjoyed it a lot.
So
I, thought they did great.
I will say to that same question, for me, does the movie itself hold up for 2024? And absolutely yes. But children were allowed to run around wherever they wanted.
Oh, for
There's
sure.
a big concert with big open flame fire pits. No one seems too worried that half the town has gone missing. And the mom had to move home after a divorce because, she couldn't possibly make it on her own.
Yeah.
So having said that, it's still really fun, especially the hair, which if you guys didn't notice is unfortunately really coming back into style right
Yeah,
now.
I've
Especially
noticed.
like the mullet stuff now.
Yes.
And like her hair, what is her name on the movie? I forget. I'm sorry.
The mom?
No, the girlfriend.
Star.
Star.
Yeah.
Like her hair is totally coming back in,
Yeah.
which I'm all prime for because my hair is naturally curly.
I was
like
going to
that.
say, yeah.
Yeah, but and so
Air
I
dry.
don't feel like it holds up in terms of like societal norms, but
Well,
as
sure.
a movie,
It's almost 40 years
right.
old.
But I
Yeah.
was thinking as she was running through that crowd over the open flame fire pits, I'm like, oh my god, her Aquanet's going to catch on fire.
She's gonna burst into
that
flames.
head's going to go
I
straight
love
up in
that
flames.
skirt she's wearing in that first
I
scene,
know.
too. It's so
it was
pretty.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about some of
Really
our
quick
favorite
though, let me
parts.
talk about because I was gonna
No.
say yes. So
Whitney does not care
She's
what we have to
moving
say
on.
tonight. God.
I was gonna say
No, I'm kidding. Because I'm telling you that face. I'm kidding because I was like, wait, I still have something I was listening to.
Oh, sorry.
We love you, Whit. I'm
no,
just
it's okay.
kidding.
She's like, I'm moving on, but I just wanted to say a couple of
Just
things
kinda
that
keep
did
it
make me
fresh, keep it
cringe.
breezy.
So
I'm
I
breezy.
did find it less cringy than I was expecting it to be because it has been several years since I watched this movie. But here are a couple things that made me cringe. That montage after Michael drinks the blood and like all the guys' faces are coming in, it's definitely giving 1980s JCPenney photo shoot vibes. I
You know
laughed
what?
out loud.
If this came out the year I went into kindergarten, I have a photo where I'm facing the camera and then my face is up in the clouds facing myself.
I have one of my dad and then my brother and I.
yeah, the Olin Mills photos.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I actually think ours was Olin Mills. But, and then the laughing scene before they kill those people, like when they're trying to get Michael to get
When
his
they
first,
drink
when
blood.
they first vamp out for him.
out of the tree, they were all hanging out in the tree. Yeah,
They're laughing and it's a little comical.
it was a little nuts.
Yeah. It was
It's
just
like
weird.
Krusty the Clown.
It was a little nuts.
But they did. Speaking to the effects, though, and Darren pointed this out. I thought this was really smart. When you look at it, I mean, they fly, right? And there are a couple of times where you see them fly. But for the most part, when they're flying in, they do it with like sound effects and like creepy
in the
sort
camera POV.
Yeah, it's
Can I go ahead and
that's
say-
a really kind of brilliant.
Yeah.
This has better special effects than Twilight.
I would say so.
I would say so. Yeah.
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 Especially the first Twilight.
Yeah, that's
Or
what I'm saying.
The first one.
Or
yeah.
even like
or even the
third
wolves.
one.
The
Yeah.
wolves talking.
I am Jacob Ephraim.
She's dying anyway.
Maybe what actually is better about this movie is that Kristen Stewart's not in it.
I know. Wah, wah.
I don't even think she was born yet, though.
Probably not.
No, I don't
Is she
think
older
she
than
was.
you or younger than you, Whit?
No, she's younger than me.
Okay, yeah, she
she's
wasn't
definitely
born.
younger than me. Well, so let's talk about some of our favorite parts.
I have so many.
I do too.
Whitney, do you want to go
Go
first?
ahead.
Okay, so even though no one else seems to be hot, the saxophone player / lead singer of the band is like oiled up and
my
like
God.
is sweating down. His tits are huge.
Yes.
Like they're all muscle, but like
Yeah.
he's like an
He's
F cup.
huge.
He's huge.
He
and
is
he can
jacked.
he can play saxophone and not even have to take a breath and go
I
into
know.
singing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
he's
mean-
like grinding and like
He looks like Fabio.
pelvic thrusting. and-
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so my youngest, my son, plays the bari sax in the band. Well, he doesn't anymore because he's in college now, but did for years. And we send him that meme all the time. And we
The way you said that, he plays the Barry sax.
Wow.
Like you guys are on like a first name basis. You and the
Like his name is Barry.
Where
Yeah.
are you?
yeah.
Barry.
Sorry. It sounded funny to my ears.
Okay, so did you notice towards the end that the younger brother is carrying around a water gun with holy water in
Yeah,
it?
they fill
Yeah.
it from the bathtub.
So I'm like,
Yeah.
why didn't Sam and Dean ever do that on Supernatural?
Right?
It's so smart. And though it's not expensive, he got that shit at the dollar
Yeah.
store. You know he did.
And they
So-
stole
Yeah.
it from the church right in front of everybody doing a christening.
Yeah, exactly.
That made me,
I'm like,
that did
nobody's
make
going
me
to say
laugh.
anything.
That made me laugh a lot.
Yeah.
No, the saxophone player was one of my favorite parts too, because that's at the very beginning of the movie, right?
Yeah.
Like in the
and
first
it's all
5
of a
minutes.
sudden, it's just like, oh, there's an oiled up guy playing the saxophone.
Well, the other thing is it's just the lead up to the reveal. I felt like it was a dramatic reveal of
Because
this
it was like
guy.
panning through the
Yes,
whole.
it was like
yeah.
the crowd
The
and
music
then the
was like-
music,
yeah.
and then it's like
I
here
kind of
he
wish
is,
he,
guys.
I
Like,
kind of
oh
wish
my
he had been the
gosh.
main vampire.
He
That
would've
would
been great.
Funny.
so he was the perm mullet, super jacked, greased up, skin tight pants, possibly like chaps. It was kind of hard to tell exactly
Yeah.
what he was wearing.
I'm gonna
Definitely
say
leather.
chaps.
Yeah, it looked like
Definitely
chaps.
leather.
Are all chaps assless?
No.
Well, they
I don't
were
think so.
assless chaps in my mind.
That's canon. Yeah, he had no shirt on. He had chains, like
was
literal
hot, Whitney.
chains,
Yeah.
as his accessories, and then he pulls out the saxophone, and I was like, oh,
And starts pelvic thrusting.
I laughed out loud, and so then I googled it to find the picture to send to Robbie to be like, I need you to do this for Halloween, which of course he was like, I will never do that for Halloween. But anyway, do you
I'll
know-
draw the abs on him.
He is that guy that he's an actual musician. Like he's not an actor.
I was going to ask if you looked him
He's
up.
not an actor playing a musician. Like he was an actual musician that they were like,
Interesting.
we need you. We need
And he's like, you know what? I've been on roids for a while. This is going to work out.
Yeah.
there were, if you just Google like saxophone player, the Lost Boys, like he's got a whole career of,
Oh my gosh.
I mean,
I mean, that guy's still getting royalties.
I know.
I'm sure
He's
he
a
is.
big part of the plot.
But I was like, you go, guy.
Yep.
But my other main favorite part of the movie generally was, look at this microphone. Our friends on YouTube keep seeing me like moving my head because this microphone will not stop turning around. Anyway, I'm just going to hold it like this. The older brother, Jason Patrick, was the actor. The character's name was Michael. I thought that he did a really great job,
yeah.
which what could have been very like unintentionally hilarious and just
Like
cheesy.
overdramatic
Yes,
and- yeah.
I thought he did a really good job with being confused and like inner turmoil
And understated and-
yes,
yeah.
with what was happening to him and like not fully understanding it and then understanding it and trying to figure out what he was going to do about it. I thought he did a really good job with that, and I was very impressed with his acting.
Yeah.
And I think he's part of the reason that I enjoyed watching it so much. That it was a legit good movie
Yeah.
and not just a oh no.
Like I just need to get through this to get,
Yeah.
to get my next big thing.
Well, I really loved the grandpa.
Me too. He's my favorite character.
Okay, so tell me why, and then I'll tell
Well,
you why.
because my favorite line in the whole thing is he goes, "Looks like I wasn't the only one who got lucky last night." And he keeps putting the animals in his room.
Oh my god, to scare him. Yeah. So I
That was
love
funny,
as
yeah.
soon as the kids arrive, he claims the second shelf of the refrigerator because that's where his root beer and his double stuffed Oreos go.
Yeah.
He's like, don't fucking touch my shit. He's like
Yeah.
laying out like roommate laws like right
Yeah.
away.
And it's
Second shelf
labeled
is mine.
too. I think it says like grandpa only or like Gramps only or whatever they call him.
And then finally, for me, in terms of favorite parts, is the iconic line, "They're only noodles, Michael." And I remember watching that as a child, and it freaked me out because whatever they did with the special effects with the maggots and worms is like the way they're slithering and the sound they make, like
Yeah,
it makes you queasy.
super gross.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was
And then when
so
they show
cool.
it after, it still kind of looks like slimy worms.
Well,
right?
and
So-
back in the 80s, that is how you consume Chinese food.
Yeah.
All Chinese food came in those
Yes.
containers, right? Like
Yeah.
I think that was kind of like the Mexican food of our day. That's
Yeah.
what everybody ate, right?
Yeah.
And so at the time, I remember being like, I'm never fucking eating rice again.
Well, I remember in elementary school that that time period for Halloween stuff, we would do like a special quote haunted classroom or whatever, and they would have a thing where you would reach into a bowl like that was covered up and you couldn't see it, and it would be like it's
spaghetti.
Brains, but it was spaghetti or whatever.
Or
you know
peeled
what I mean?
grapes was like eyeballs.
Yes, and it made me think of that. That whole
See, our
scene.
kids don't get to do that fun shit because now they're like, oh, it's gonna scar them.
I know.
But you know what?
I'm just in therapy and medicated.
I was gonna say they're not gonna have a funny podcast.
They're not.
Right?
They're not.
They're not going to have our sense of humor. I also, I was just going to say, I really liked the death scenes of the vampires.
Yeah.
They were all so
unique.
gross, and they were all different. Yes. And I was
the death by stereo.
That made me laugh. But I was kind of, at first I was like, I think I prefer the Buffy method of them just kind of like disappearing in ash. Mm-hmm. And then the like second or third one, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah. Like I get the horror part of the movie.
Can I ask a question then?
Being gross.
Why did the main vampire literally explode into like a Michael Bay-esque hellfire?
Because why not?
He's the only one that died that way. And thank God there was a fireplace right there.
No
like slammed into. But then everybody stands up and their face is all covered in soot and shit. So he did ash out, but I was like, why did he explode?
Yeah, I don't know.
I literally think that the movie people were like, why not?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
It's got to be different. He's the big guy.
How many different ways can a vampire die?
Do you think when he went on the set of Gilmore Girls, Alexis Bledel was like, I loved you in The Lost Boys?
I feel like Lauren Graham would have said
yes,
that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, and is that why when he's in those Gilmore Girls episodes, it's never that he's part of the cast. It's always like, and special appearance by whatever his name is. And I'm like, is it because he was in The Lost Boys?
Oh, you know it is.
Like
absolutely.
Right. Yeah. They're like, oh, King.
Yeah.
I had a couple more favorite parts. Most of you mostly said most of mine, but I did love the iconic train scene where they're hanging.
Oh, yeah.
It's just so gripping.
Again, the Jason Patrick did a great job
in his bed,
being scared.
Yeah, that was wild. Again, that's how you don't show them flying, right? We know they flew. We know that they lived and they flew or did something. But then he lands in his bed. I just think that was very.
Do you think they're trying to also make the viewer think that it might have all been like a dream too?
Maybe, yeah, because he hadn't really figured it out at that point.
Yeah,
like that he was that way.
I also don't believe that those guys could have hung on to that railroad for as long as they did.
No. I mean, the
like
vampires
shaking them
could.
profusely.
I just think it was a cool, gripping scene.
Very cool scene.
And then the soundtrack. Can we talk about the soundtrack for a minute? The music slaps. I'm just telling you that right now.
Thou shalt not
cry, little sister. That was some powerful shit, guys. I love that song.
You can bet your ass I'm putting that on my Halloween soundtrack this year.
And People Are Strange, which I didn't even realize that they've got a whole big picture of Jim Morrison in their lair.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, it's like on their.
Whitney,
ceiling.
I think I found a song I can sing. It's in my brain.
Look, say what you want. So good. Oh, and then the I think it's not Elton John. Somebody else does a rendition of "Don't Let the Sun Go Down." I mean, it's brilliant.
George Michael.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Brilliant. I just love the soundtrack. That's like forever associated with this movie.
That's one of Robbie's favorite songs.
Really? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And then finally, one of my other favorite quotes was from Sam when he says, "You're a vampire, my own brother. You wait until mom finds out." It's like so brother. Like kind of reminded me of Sam and Dean a little bit.
That takes me to my least favorite part though, because it doesn't matter. He could have fed on someone in front of her and she would have not believed a word they said. She assumed that they were just jealous of her new lover, who at the time keeps dating her in spite of her no boundaries family. We know why later, but I'm like, why does he keep asking her out? Her life is a fucking mess. Her kids are trying to tell her something and she's like, fuck off, I'm horny. Like she does not care.
To mention the questionable workplace romance.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
From the video store.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Like the neon Best Buy that they're at, like in the middle of town. But yeah, she does not give a fuck about those kids. She's like, you know what? This guy's tall. I bet he has a big dick. I don't really care if he bites me. I'll let him bite me. She almost does at one point. And I really did not like that at all. I did not like her character. I like her as an actress, but the character, I didn't love it.
Yeah, she was a little clueless.
She was very clueless. Yeah, the only thing that I didn't like about it was just the romance, actually, between Star and Michael, just because it did not make any sense to me.
Yeah.
And I get, like, they want to have, Jason Mantzoukas in How Did This Get Made calls Jamie Gertz, she's one of the ladies of the 80s. And she totally is.
She's beautiful.
She's great.
She still is beautiful.
Yeah, she's great, and I have no problem with them having a romance, but I feel like they didn't do anything with it in the movie.
Why did they all of a sudden fuck?
Exactly.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Right. It's just there
Jason
was no
Patrick's
build
like,
up.
taking my shirt off is in my contract, guys.
Yes, like it's a beautiful girl and a beautiful guy.
I mean, was it trauma
Like,
bonding, maybe?
I don't, but I wish they had
Also,
built
there
that
was
up
a
little
vampire
bit.
kid sleeping
I
5
know.
feet from them.
Dude.
That was a little
You couldn't have had him go
disrespectful
somewhere else.
and
Yeah.
That was my
inappropriate.
other least favorite part. So I just felt like they didn't build up the romance enough. I didn't believe it at all. It didn't make sense to me. But first of all, I will say about the romance. If I had watched this movie as like a teenager, I would have been all about that. And I would not have cared whatsoever.
Now we're too
Right.
invested into good romance.
Exactly.
books.
Yeah.
yes.
So there's that. But the only other aspect I didn't like was Laddie, the little boy.
Hey there, laddie.
So first of all, before you find out really what's going on, I'm like, is nobody bothered that there's some random kid on motorcycles with these what look like 30-year-old men? Like,
Whitney?
what is happening with
Whitney,
this?
I want to point out again, this was the year you were born. They didn't give a fuck
did
in
not.
the
Then,
80s.
but then you see his face on the milk carton, the kid on the milk carton who's missing, and I'm like, you guys have had to
You
have
know
seen
what?
him running around town with these 30-year-old men.
They did not show him enough for me to make that connection.
Oh,
It took me till
really?
the end of the movie to go, oh, that was a kid on the milk carton.
Oh, yeah.
I don't feel like he was in it enough. But also, I've seen this a million times, so I also was not like staring at the
Paying
screen
that
the whole
much atten-
time.
yeah.
I will say too, because this is a short movie. Like you don't see hour-and-a-half movies that much anymore, unless
That's
it's like a
true.
children's
Yeah,
movie.
it is short.
There is probably so much on the editing floor. I would
Oh.
love to see some of the cut scenes in this.
It's
Where's the
probably
director's cut?
It's probably
Yeah.
building up the relationship between Star
Probably,
and Michael.
yeah. Like that's what I'm
probably
saying.
What it is?
Like you probably get so much more. I
Hopefully
feel
they
like
told Laddie to go outside while they fucked. hey,
probably
buddy, go
didn't.
feed. I'm real horny.
Yeah, they probably did.
go to bed.
Honestly.
mommy and daddy are gonna cuddle.
But in the other room, whatever you hear, I'm not hurting her.
Well, I did have several questions about the vampire lore in this movie, just like the rules of
I
it
didn't
all.
get to say what my least favorite part was.
Okay.
Our gracious host is just trying to move shit along.
Sorry. But I just wanted to point out, because this is the one thing that really bothered me about this movie, is that Corey Haim's clothes, Sam's clothes, are like 80s on steroids. Like that was so unbelievable to me. If they didn't have much money, he is not dressing like Don Johnson on crack. Like I did not get that at all. And I get he was like supposed to be from like Arizona, which is supposed to be cooler somehow.
I
Or
think
maybe
SoCal's
wealthier.
cooler, but that's just me.
I don't know. I just his out every time he came out, I was like, what the fuck is he wearing?
Can I just say too? We didn't even need Corey Feldman and
No.
co in this movie.
Not really.
Like he did not need them to tell him there were vampires. He did not. And their acting is
It
atrocious.
is. I think they were supposed to be comic relief because he's
but
in
they
it.
weren't. They were
I
just
know.
cringy.
Yeah.
They had already done the Goonies at this point,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So
and
I
that's
think
whenever
that's
you had the
probably
two
why.
Corys and everything.
Yeah,
They were doing a
that's-
bunch of stuff.
They had to
That's
find
why.
something for Corey Feldman to
That's
do.
why he
Well,
was
now
in the
Corey
movie.
Feldman has his angels, so you know
Yeah.
that's a whole other
Feldman.
episode.
Talking about the fashion, that How Did This Get Made episode I was listening to, where they were talking about Garbage Pail Kids, Jason Mantzoukas said it was the 80s where kids dressed like grown-ups and grown-ups dressed like space aliens. And I was like, that's pretty
Yes.
I'm waiting.
Accurate.
I will
Accurate.
tell you, I'm waiting for the shh pants to come back in, like
The
parachute
windbreak-
pants?
Yeah,
The
no, the
windbreakers.
windbreaker pants.
Oh.
windbreaker
with
pants.
the matching jacket, because you never had
Yeah.
to worry about matching your clothes. They just went together. You
Yeah.
put like a little turtleneck on underneath that.
Yeah.
We all looked great.
We did.
We did. We all looked
And you
great.
could hear us
That's
coming.
what was cool.
Yeah.
That's why we wore the windbreaker, so you would know that we were coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
Can Whitney please move on?
I really do want to hear what you have to say about the questions.
Well, I just had a lot of questions about like the rules of these vampires, because there was some stuff that was very familiar to me, and then there was other stuff that I was like, I've never heard that before. So I messaged friend of the podcast, AJ Vrena. She's an author and a vampire expert. Please go check out her new book, Wild Blood. It comes out at the very end of October 2024. I messaged her to just talk about the lore of this movie specifically versus real vampire folklore. And basically, she told me that mostly all of the vampire lore in this movie is just like made up for this movie.
Right.
Like, and is not rooted in any real
it also
folklore.
set the tone for a lot of lore in movies that came after it, though.
Yes, exactly. So we have a really good interview with her during season 3 of the podcast, our last episode of the discussion of the show Midnight Mass, where we talk about vampire
It's
lore.
such a good episode.
AJ's a guest
amazing.
on that episode, so that's in the show notes. So go back and listen to that, because it's going to be a deeper dive than this. But I just asked her about several aspects of the vampires in this movie. So I asked her specifically about being able to fly in human form, having bat-like behaviors, like sleeping upside down in the cave with like the gross feet, but not actually turning into a bat, glowing in the dark, dying in those different grotesque ways.
They
having
glow in
them
the
all-
dark?
The Corey Feldman at one point says that they do, or
That must be
or
on the cutting room
asks.
floor. We don't ever see it, right?
No, I don't think
No,
we
you don't
do,
see
but
them
he's
actually
like,
doing
is he
that.
glowing in the dark? Like it's
Yeah.
one of the list of things that they talk about. The dying in all the different weird ways, what I call the Buffy style vampire face, like that you can like turn on and off. And then the whole thing with Max, where is like the twist at the end. Spoiler alert. If you invite a vampire into your house, then you can't use any safeguards against them. Like holy water doesn't work against them. Garlic doesn't work against them if you invite them in. So I asked her about all those things, and she was like, yeah, none of that is real.
Don't pay attention to that.
Yeah.
AJ's like, I don't need to come on the show this time. The answer's no.
Yeah, she was like, that doesn't have any roots in real vampire lore. So true vampire folklore, what is actually historical, is that there were no rules and there was no real structure, because people just used it as kind of an umbrella explanation for things that they didn't understand. So there were no rules. It didn't matter. So in folklore, to become a vampire, you had to have actually died and returned as a vampire. You can't become a vampire while you're still living.
How do
I
you?
thought that was weird that he just drank their blood and then he started having.
I did too.
How do you get converted then from like true vampire lore? Did she say?
Yes.
Okay.
So she said that she called it OG lore. Vampires often snuck into their families' homes in the middle of the night and fed off of them. So it would have been like a dead relative who snuck in after death. They must have turned into a vampire and then made me sick or made the baby sick, or like that's how they explain different things. So she used the example, women would report their husbands returning and having sex with them as vampires, and then the women suddenly are pregnant and would give birth to a baby with a birth defect. And that's how they explained a pregnancy after their husband had died, and or a baby born with some kind of birth defect, right?
They were just women that weren't allowed to like sex.
Right. So she said, obviously, my husband came back from the grave and essayed me was probably to cover up the origin of the pregnancy. And I was like, yes. So she said the idea of being bitten to become a vampire, or to bite others if you are a vampire, and also the whole bat association with vampirism, is all from Bram Stoker and his book Dracula. He made all of that up basically, which kind of makes it more interesting.
Yeah.
To listen
I
to and
really
talk
want
about.
to visit that castle. Is on my bucket list before I die.
Ooh.
Is
in
it really?
Romania. Oh yeah, for sure. You guys want to go?
Girl trip.
Who do I take trips with? You all. Let's go.
So in original vampire folklore, there was no contagion. It wasn't something that could happen to you. You had to die and come back as a vampire.
What made you come back, though? That's what I'm asking. Did she say?
There was no rhyme or reason.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
People would just say, oh, he must have become a vampire and come back and then did this to us in the middle of the night. And that's why we have this illness or whatever.
Well, one thing that AJ told us last time, too, is sometimes they would dig people back up and there'd be like scratch marks on the coffin, but it was because they weren't actually dead.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people got buried alive on accident.
Yeah.
Which, can you imagine? Oh, my God.
That would be the worst thing.
I would just assume I was already in hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
And just lay there.
Especially back in that time period, right?
Right,
Like,
yeah.
you probably would. So she said this whole idea that's in The Lost Boys that you could be like a human vampire hybrid is just made up for story's sake. So either The Lost Boys made it up for their movie, or some other book or movie made it up before them, and The Lost Boys just like borrowed from that. But that's not a real vampire folklore. And the Buffy style vampire face that they can like appear and disappear at will is also a modern invention. AJ said OG vampires were always deformed. There was no like one or the other.
I mean, because they were dead.
Right. Depending on
So
how they
I do
felt.
want to point out a lot of the things that you're saying that don't actually happen, like in true vampire lore, Anne Rice had already done. So
okay.
she had already...
Like the demon face thing?
So no, Interview with Vampire came out in 1976, but the
Okay.
whole like vampires don't have reflections, vampires can be bit
Yeah.
to change, all of that definitely. I don't know who did it before her,
Yeah.
but I feel like a lot of this Anne Rice had kind of already done, but she wasn't super popular yet.
Yeah.
And so like you never know, maybe
Yeah.
the director was a buddy of hers or maybe they
Maybe,
just really
yeah.
liked her book. I don't know, or maybe they got it from somewhere else. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I saw so much of that. I was like, oh, that's very Anne Rice.
Yeah. I know Bram Stoker did the biting stuff because it was very like sexual innuendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so are Anne Rice's.
Well,
yeah.
well, and it's not really innuendo for Anne Rice. Is
Well,
it?
and Anne Rice was one of the first mainstream authors to really do like queer romance too. Like they got like traditionally published. Yeah.
So AJ said, basically, she sums it up like this: the difference between OG folklore and modern vampire lore. This is what she says. Modern fantasy systems are really obsessed with rules and making sense of why things are the way they are. So they come up with all these explanations for why or how things happen. So you got to get bitten or drink the blood. And maybe sometimes we subvert the rules, but there has to be a reason and an explanation for subverting the rules later. But the original folklore is very fluid and does not always make sense. So people just became vampires, and people were like, well, I guess he was a bad person.
Well, in AJ's defense, nowadays everyone's reading and writing about it online. So if you don't
Yes.
have rules, all of us readers go batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a word from AJ.
Thank you for asking
Thank you.
her
That's
about that.
awesome.
Oh, well,
We
thank
love you,
to
AJ.
Yeah, she's really sweet. She was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for sending me these questions." Like, she was like, "I've
She
been
is
waiting."
she is super nice and
really is.
giving of her time. I really and shout out to her. She just got picked up by Trad Publishing.
Yes, yeah, she's got a literary agent now.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. I forgot about that. And Whitney, when does her book come out?
October. I think it's October 29th.
Yeah, it's
October
Wild
29th.
Blood.
Yeah, it's linked in the show notes.
Yep.
Oh, is it? Good. Yeah, I actually bought a special edition of it because it's got sprayed edges, and I'm kind of a slut for sprayed edges. And it comes with vellum overlays of some
I
of
love
the
that.
spicy scenes. So I'm very excited. And it's set in the same world as these Hollow Gods.
Oh, I didn't
Okay.
realize that.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, well,
I believe so. I'll double check that, and if I'm wrong, I'll put it in the show notes. But I,
we'll
I
just
think,
edit that out.
I think Kai from These Hollow Vows is the main guy in Wild Blood.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm not.
I'll
sure.
double check on that.
Well, cool. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about with Lost Boys? I enjoyed it. It was a
I
good
did too.
idea.
I really loved it.
I'm so
It
glad
was
you
fun.
watched it, Whit.
Yeah,
I know.
it was fun to watch. I was afraid I wasn't going to like it because I was like, I know this is almost as old. Well, it is as old as me. So,
You never know.
Some movies like The Garbage Pail Kids.
Those don't hold
They
up.
don't hold up. Yeah. So, Well, that brings us to our nerdiest things of the week. Who wants to go first?
Whitney, go ahead, because you sound like you've had the most nerd fun this week.
Well, I kind of haven't. This is... It makes me laugh, but it's kind of like a womp womp nerdiest thing of the week. So
Can't wait to hear it.
In my neighborhood Facebook group, somebody was selling some books, and they had a post specifically for like ACOTAR. And a few people commented like, ooh, me, next, that kind of thing. And so I commented and I said, like, I already have these. These are some of my favorite books. And, if anybody wants to be like nerdy book friends, like, hey, I'm here. We're in the same neighborhood. And not only did no one respond, they deleted the whole post.
What? Well, I'm assuming it's because her
They
stuff
sold
is
it.
sold.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming that too.
Not because you're a nerd.
Well, because I was like, I haven't gotten any notifications about this comment.
We don't need those bitches in your
So I
neighborhood.
went to look and I was like, oh.
We don't need that kind of negativity in our life.
So
I'm sorry. I'm sure you have lovely people in
I
your
still
neighborhood
have, well, Sure. So
we wouldn't know because you didn't answer Whitney's
I know.
ad.
I have no book friends still in my neighborhood. But
I was
that's
about to say, you
okay.
have two
In my
book friends sitting
neighborhood.
right here.
Yeah. so,
Move closer. They'll be in your
That's fine.
neighborhood.
But anyway, so I was like, I like guitar too. And everyone was like, fuck you.
They're like, we don't care what his wings.
Nobody cares. You weirdo.
So
Stay
before-
on your street.
Before I tell you mine, my apologies. AJ's book is not These Hollow Vows. That's Lexi Ryan. AJ's book is The Hollow Gods.
Gods. Oh,
and
yeah.
Kai is in that book also.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a crossover.
Shout out to Kai.
Yeah, so my nerdiest thing of the week is I scheduled my next tattoo.
Oh.
I have a big Frida on my arm, and so I'm putting another Frida on my arm. And I have my appointment coming up on the 17th.
Nice.
It's a girl that I met at an art show, and we were talking about books because that's what I do. And then she had said that she was a tattoo artist, and so I looked her up, and she does like beautiful work. So I'm really
Ooh,
excited.
cool.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
That's fun.
So I got tattoo money for my birthday 2 months ago, and I've been saving up a little bit since. And so, like, I'm thrilled. I can't
Yeah.
wait to do
That's
it.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, it'll be
I can't wait to
fun.
see it.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Mindy, what's your nerdiest thing?
Well, mine is, so my oldest turned 22.
Good load.
No, 23. Turned 23 this week. Yes. And we don't do like huge birthday stuff. We always take them out to eat, especially now because like we can't ever coordinate all our schedules, all the kids work. So, but we did manage to, it was just me and my husband and Val went out to dinner, and then we came home, and I had bought him something for Christmas, but I was like, I'm just going to give it to him for his birthday.
I thought you meant last Christmas because you just got your Christmas present. From
I know, yes, I did. No, like I do
You know what? Fuck you. You didn't get a present either.
I do my Christmas shopping super early. If I see something I think they'll like, I'll
I'm
just
like
pick it
that
up.
too.
For the
Yeah.
record, I already have Christmas presents for the both of you.
Aw.
Well, I think I have both of yours also. So yeah. But Val loves cryptids. So I found this like create a cryptid magnet set. And so it's got all these like wings and like bird bodies and like heads and like, so it's like basically like body parts of cryptids, and you can mix
I
and
kinda
match
want
them.
that.
It is amazing. So
what's a cryptid?
a cryptid
cryptid,
like Bigfoot or
mythical creatures.
Kraken, those kinds
All
of
of
things.
the
Gotcha.
characters on Supernatural are cryptids.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like all of the ones
Gotcha.
that like live in the forest and shit.
So, so anyway, he was so excited about it. He punched them all out. They were all, punched all the magnets out. I got out a cookie sheet so that we could like put them on there as magnets, and we sat there and made cryptids for like an hour.
I would have fun with that, honestly.
It was so fun. We had a
It's like-
blast.
well, it's like Cootie Bug for adults.
Yeah.
It is. I got it on a website called Descent Pins, which is a great website.
That's a great
too.
website.
Yeah, and so I linked to that in the show notes as well. But they've got other great stuff on there as well. But yeah, go get you a cryptid.
Well, fun.
Create a cryptid magnet kit because it's super fun.
That sounds fun.
It's like paper dolls.
Remind me to tell you offline, there is a local cryptid artist that I love that maybe you should get some prints for Val for Christmas.
I would love to know
Yeah.
that.
Fun. Thank you for teaching me what a cryptid is.
Yeah, you learn.
That's your nerdiest thing of the week.
Yeah,
Lynn.
stay curious. Ask questions. Well, guys, that is it. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great rest of your day.
Whitney's like, how do I end this?
Like, I'm done.
That's what I say at the end of my bar glasses. Have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye.
Like what you heard in this episode? Follow Our Nerdiest Thing on Instagram at instagram.com/Our Nerdiest Thing or Facebook at facebook.com/Our Nerdiest Thing. We love hearing from fellow nerds. Email us at ournerdiestthing@gmail.com.